Does the idea of not eating for 16, 18, or maybe even 20 hours sound too hard? Are you wondering if fasting for only 12 hours each day can actually work for fat loss? Perhaps you're just learning about intermittent fasting, or maybe it's even a fat loss tool that you've been using for some time, but now you're wondering if 12-hour fasts can actually work for fat loss. As someone who has been there and done that with all of the major fasting plans, I find 12-hour fasts the most beneficial to those who are new to intermittent fasting. Now, a few years ago, I was featured in media like People magazine and Pop Sugar for losing 100 pounds with intermittent fasting. And even as someone who's quite experienced with all of the fasting protocols, these days I prefer more gentle fasts like a 12-12 fast now that I want to shed a few more pounds as a woman over 40. Now let's start with a quick explanation of what a 12-12 fast is in case you're brand new to intermittent fasting. But first, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe so you can keep learning all of my best fat loss tricks as a woman over 40. Okay, a 12-12 fast means that you will go 12 straight hours without eating while fitting all of your meals and snacks into a 12-hour eating window. So an example of this is if you stop eating after dinner, so let's say your dinner ends at 6 p.m., then you go to bed at a reasonable hour like 9 p.m., or maybe that's just me and my old lady self. But in any case, in this example, that is already 3 hours without eating. Now, when you add on another 8 hours that you should be sleeping, especially since getting enough sleep is vital for fat loss, now that's 11 hours with no food. So if you wait only one more hour before eating after you wake up, ta-da, you just completed your 12-hour fast. Some of the benefits of a 12-hour fast include, number one, shorter fasts are really great for beginners. And a big reason is that starting with a 12-12 fast is just much less stressful on your body than starting with a more difficult fast like, say, a 16-8 or 24. And in case you're not aware, it is so important to keep stress low while you're trying to lose weight because too much stress can actually lead to weight gain. And this is even when you're following a weight loss protocol like intermittent fasting. Plus, when you follow a shorter fast, you're actually less likely to lose muscle while you're in a calorie deficit. And while maybe you don't really care about losing muscle since all you want to do is see the number on the scale move down, not losing muscle during a diet is so important. Not losing muscle during a diet is something you need to focus on, at least if you don't want to regain everything you lose. Now, this is because when you lose muscle, your metabolism whittles right down with it. That means that you'll have to keep eating less and less calories just to maintain the weight you lose. Now, eventually eating less and less is just not sustainable, which means you're going to start regaining everything you lost. Only this time around, when you try to lose it again, it is going to be with even less calories in order to get your scale to budge. Since this process isn't sustainable long term, it's better to eat as much as possible while losing somewhere around a pound per week, especially you need to eat more protein. And while you can still eat a good amount of food in a smaller window, as I personally have been known to eat 1,000 calories just for dinner, some studies show that the longer you fast, the higher chance you're going to lose muscle. So while some shorter fasts like 12 hours or 16 hours, these can be okay when it comes to keeping your metabolism stronger while losing weight, just keep in mind that more fasting isn't always better when it comes to long-term fat loss. Now, if you ask, how much weight can I lose if I fast for 12 hours each day? That answer is actually going to depend on how much of an overall calorie deficit that you're in. While intermittent fasting is a great tool when it comes to controlling your hunger, you won't lose any weight with fasting if you still overeat during your eating window. Now, this is true whether you follow a 12-hour fast or even if you are more extreme with a 16, 18, or even 20-hour or more fasting window. Intermittent fasting is a great tool to help you control hunger, and it can take your mind off eating all day, every day. But fasting, it's not magic. If you end up overeating once your eating window opens because during the fasting window it was just too intense for your body, then you can and will gain weight with pretty much any fasting window you choose. That's one big reason that I always suggest my clients start with a basic 12-hour fast. While it can still take work to get up to that 12 hours of fasting window if you're someone who's accustomed to just eating around the clock, eating in a 12-12 pattern is much more gentle on your body than jumping right into those 16 or 18-hour fasts or fasts that are even longer and more intense. And not only can overeating during your fasting window cause weight gain with these longer fasts, but if you jumped right into a longer fast because you just thought more is better, then waiting 16 hours or more to eat can actually lead to a big cortisol spike. And basically, cortisol spikes are the enemy of fat loss since not only will they increase your appetite, which will cause you to eat more, but cortisol spikes also lead to cravings for sweet, fatty, and salty foods, which of course are all of the foods that lead to overeating and cause weight gain. Now, once you establish a 12-12 eating pattern, then you can decide whether or not you want to take your fasting routine to the next level. For some people, 12-12 is all you need to improve digestion and control hunger. This pattern can provide a nice boost to your fat loss plan, and you'll never even really need to consider extending your fast past 12 hours. Now, for others, fasting 16 hours or more each day is just more convenient, and a longer fasting window helps control hunger more than refraining from eating for 12 hours each day. So if that's the case, then you can decide to slowly work your way up to that 16-hour mark and see how you do. Now, when I first started fasting, I started with 12 to 14-hour fasts, and I stayed there for a very long time. Now, this is mostly because this was back in 2014, and many health sources claim that women shouldn't fast longer than this since it could negatively affect their hormones. Now, I did lose close to 90 pounds just following a basic low-carb diet with 12 to 14-hour fast, and that's really as extreme as I got back then. But after a little bit of weight regain during my second pregnancy, I worked my way up to those 16-8 fasts most days while throwing in a 24-hour fast 1 to 2 times each week. Since I felt more experienced, I wanted to speed up my fat loss progress. And following this routine did help me get to my lowest weight since even before high school. But while this pattern worked well for me for a pretty long time, eventually my hormones crashed. In fact, there was a period of time when I couldn't fast any longer than 12 hours without feeling exhausted and without getting migraines or really bad headaches the next day. I unfortunately also regained nearly 50 of the 100 pounds that I worked so hard to lose, even though I diligently followed strict keto and intermittent fasting. So I had to completely remove fasting from my routine for a period of time in order to allow my body to heal from too many stressors like too much restriction with strict keto and the stress of attempting longer and longer fasting windows in order to take off the weight that I regained. Now, if I had to do it again, I wouldn't have tried continually extending my fast to see how low I could get the scale to go. And I definitely would not have listened to all of the fasting gurus who were telling me which fasts were right for me or that more fasting would be better for my health. I would have instead listened to the signals that my body was sending that sometimes too much fasting is just too much stress. Alternatively, I do wish that I would have focused on building up my metabolism sooner with more resistance training, more overall calorie intake, and definitely with more protein. Since my hormones crashed, I've worked my way back up to 14 to 15-hour fast most days. But these days, that's really where I cap my fasting efforts. This is a place that doesn't stress me out and it's just easy to follow. I feel no need to fast any more than this, and I really only follow any type of fasting schedule at all because it best fits my routine. Plus, I do find that fasting 14 to 15 hours most days does help control hunger whenever I'm focusing on being in a calorie deficit for fat loss. So, with that said, I've since learned that fat loss really does come down to sticking to a moderate calorie deficit. There's really no need for extremes when it comes to long-term fat loss, which means there's no need to go past a 12-hour fast if it doesn't feel right for you. So, whether you continue to follow a gentle 12-hour fast to help improve digestion and help control hunger, or maybe you decide to follow a 16-hour fast or longer, do what works best for you and because it feels right. Please, please do not feel like you have to follow some arbitrary fasting window because some weight loss guru told you that fasting all of the time is the only way to lose weight. I promise you, it is not. As long as you figure out the right calorie deficit that is right for you, plus you actively work to gain or maintain muscle by eating more protein and adding in resistance training a few times each week, you will reach your goals. Only this time, you're taking a more realistic and long-term approach, so you're more likely to stay there. Now, hopefully this answers your question on whether or not 12-hour fasting is the right diet tool for you. If you have any questions, please drop them below. Also, check out eatingfatistheNewSkinny.com/tips to get my top 5 fat loss tips for women over 40. I'll drop that link in the video description as well as personal coaching info in case you decide you're ready to take your plan to the next level.